Therapy changed my life, and I know that it can change yours too. So in today's video, I'm going to share tips on how to find the right therapist for you. Hi, I'm Missy. Welcome to Healing for Brown Girls, where we have conversations about healing for women. If this is your first time watching a video, please hit the like and the subscribe button below so that you can be notified every time I post a new video every Wednesdays. I actually have been in therapy since 2018, so it's been a few years now, and I'm such a big advocate for therapy because I've seen what it's done for me and also those in my life who've also gone to therapy as well. There are actually different types of mental health professionals. For the sake of this video, we're going to be talking about therapy in regards to seeing a licensed therapist. If you're someone who needs certain medical services or you need to be diagnosed with a certain condition, then you might also need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I would definitely suggest doing your research so that you can know what's out there and who you need to see. I actually started therapy back in, I believe it was around 2017. At the time, I was experiencing a lot of different emotions that I really couldn't filter through. And I was also having a lot of questions in regards to my relationships and also relationships with my parents. And I just wanted to get a professional's opinion on about what I was going through. And I had also just graduated college as well. So I was just going through a lot of change in my life, and I felt like I was just kind of bottling up my emotions. My first therapist was actually a female therapist, and I liked her. She was really good, but our first session was so intense. It was so much that I did not go back. I went to one session and I was just like, this is a lot. I'm not going back. And so I really didn't go back. But she was actually really good. I really liked her. And I found her through this website called Open Path Collective, which I'll talk about more later on in the video. The second time I decided to try therapy, I was more ready for it. I was experiencing so much different things at one time. I had a parent that was sick, and then I also was in a long-term relationship, and I was trying to figure that out. That relationship became so unhealthy. I was not coping well, and so it was the last resort. I was like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what else, because nothing else was working. So in the beginning, I actually went to therapy a minimum of once a week. Sometimes I would do twice a week. It really depended on what was going on in my life at the time. Now that my life is just completely different right now and I'm in a stable place, I still go to therapy, but I go now about every 3 weeks. But if things would change and I felt like I needed to go to her more, then I would. So it really just depends on where I'm at in my life and what's going on. That really kind of guides on how often I go to therapy. I'm actually going to share tips on where you can actually find a therapist. I found my therapist on Open Path Collective. Open Path Collective is actually a network of licensed therapists who provide their services at a discounted rate for those who are uninsured or who simply can't afford therapy, because therapy can be expensive. I've seen therapists that charge upwards of $250, $300 an hour. So it really depends on your city, where you're located, the therapist. Are they in person? Are they virtual? So the cost will vary depending on who you go to. Every therapist is different. With Open Path Collective, you actually have to pay a one-time fee in order to be able to use the network or search for their network of therapists. And so once you do that, you can filter through based on the type of therapist you're wanting, based on what services they offer. I really love it because it gives you an opportunity to search for so many different therapists. And as I mentioned, they offer those services at a discounted rate versus if you did not go to see them through Open Path Collective. Therapy for Black Girls is actually another website that has a network of therapists. I love Therapy for Black Girls because it actually caters to Black women. Although it's not important for you to find a therapist that looks exactly like yourself, I do feel like as Black women, we have different nuances and we have different things that we go through that maybe a Black therapist or a person of color would understand more. So with Therapy for Black Girls, it actually caters to us And that, I know that usually doesn't happen, but that's one of the reasons why I really love that resource. Psychology Today is actually a website, and I love Psychology Today because there's so many different resources on the website. So again, you can filter through and look for different psychologists, licensed therapists, and even psychiatrists. And you can also filter through based on language, what kind of therapist you're looking for, what services you're needing. So there's so many different options as well on Psychology Today. Sonder Mind, also another great resource for finding a therapist. It's also a network of therapists, and once you get into the website, it actually asks for you to fill out a questionnaire, and it actually looks to pair you to a therapist based on what you're looking and what services you need. Blackfemaletherapist.com is also another website that caters to Black women and also to therapists that have Black clients as well. So again, they are very familiar with the different types of things that Black women go through, the different type of topics that we may have to discuss or may want to discuss. So it's also a great resource for Black women. Social media. Social media is actually a great tool for being able to find therapists. So many therapists actually today, they have Instagram, they have YouTube, they have some form of social media. So it's great to be able to locate and find therapists as well on social media. And with that, you'll also be able to see maybe what kind of content they post, and maybe you can even see if you can get a feel of their personality to see if that's a certain therapist that you'd like to see. A simple Google search. So that is actually how I found Open Path Collective. I did a simple Google search and looked for therapists in my area. So once you do that, again, you'll have so many different resources that'll pop up, and it'll probably also have different therapists in your area. You can do it by zip code, you can do it by race. I mean, any information you want, you can find on Google. So it's the same with finding a therapist. For those who want options and may not be able to pay out of pocket, a lot of employers offer employee assistance programs. So that is actually something that I wish I took advantage of, because not only was it offered to me as an employee at the time, but it was also offered to me when I was a college student. So if you're a college student, if you're an employee, definitely go to Human Resources and maybe see what kind of options you have for being able to see a therapist. And I know a lot of the time some employers even cover that as paid time off to be able to go see someone. So you definitely want to look into that and kind of see what resources are offered to you. If you have health insurance or Medicaid, at the time I did not have health insurance, which is why I decided to go through Open Path Collective, because I couldn't afford a regular rate that the therapists were offering. But if you have health insurance, if you have Medicaid, there are also different therapists that may offer insurance. There are some therapists that are private and they don't accept any insurance, but there are definitely a lot of therapists who do. So I would suggest going online, whatever health insurance coverage you have. Each insurance provider always has a website where you can go online and filter through and see who's in your area and if there's someone that may accept your insurance. When finding your ideal therapist, there are so many things to consider. One of those things could be distance. Now with COVID, I know so many therapists, including mine, she actually decided to go virtual, which I really do miss that in-person experience. And at first, I was unhappy about it because I was used to going to her office and laying on her pretty couch and all of that. But eventually I did get used to it, and I actually like it now. With COVID and we're in a pandemic, so there are actually some therapists who only do virtual, and then there are some therapists who may still do in-person as well. So if you're someone who wants that in-person experience, you definitely want to consider distance. I live in a really big city, so when I was looking for my current therapist now, I made the mistake of finding a therapist who was very far, and it was very difficult getting to her, especially leaving work at the time. Virtual versus in-person, two totally different experiences. I'm actually happy that I had that rapport with my therapist. I had already been seeing her for almost 2 years before she decided to go virtual. There really was not much of a change for me in her presence, because the way she is virtually is exactly the way she is in person. That I really liked versus starting off brand new with someone who's virtual. But I am also someone who likes in-person experiences. It really just depends on what your preference is. But this is what I love about therapy. You can choose what works best for you. I would suggest that if you're going to be doing therapy for the first time, maybe look at the reviews that a therapist may have. A lot of different websites offer reviews on a therapist as well. And also, if you go to a therapist and you don't like that therapist, or you don't feel like you two mesh, then you don't have to stick to that certain therapist. And if you want to try a different therapist, you can do that as well before you commit to one person. There's so many different options, but reviews are always great to be able to maybe kind of see what other people are saying about that therapist to see if it will be a good fit for you. When I first started therapy, I was actually looking for a therapist who was experienced in the topic that I wanted to cover. If you're someone who needs a certain or specific topic covered in therapy, then that's also something that you should consider. Consider the person's background, their experience, and also if they even offer that type of service. This one was very important to me when I was looking for my therapist, because I wanted to be sure I was seeking a therapist who would have some knowledge about my background or can offer me support or information in certain areas. So I do not believe that your therapists need to be the same race, background, culture, or creed as you, but I do believe that a therapist should have some form of knowledge, or they should be willing to learn if they don't already know certain nuances that you may experience because you're from a different culture or different background. My first therapist, she was actually a white woman, and I liked her. I just was not ready for therapy at that time, but if I was still in that same city at the time, I probably would go back to her. But my current therapist, she is a Black woman, and I find that that really has helped me so much because we relate a lot on certain topics, and I don't have to do much explaining to her about the different nuances that comes with being a Black woman, especially a Black woman living in America. With that being said, no, I don't. If you're Black, does your therapist need to be Black? No, absolutely not. I don't even think that if you're a woman, your therapist needs to be a woman. I think, though, that your therapist should be able to offer support, and they should be able to offer some kind of understanding and be able to guide you through whatever issue that you're going through. And if there are certain nuances to your background or your experience, whether it's as a woman, whether it's as a man, whatever it may be, I think that the therapist should also be willing to learn if they don't already know. Personality is also a big one for me. I've only tried 2 therapists, and I liked both of them. Very different personalities that come from different backgrounds. But I think it really just depends on the person. If your therapists have a certain personality and it doesn't match yours, that's okay. Just like us, they're humans too. So you may not mesh with your therapist, and it's okay, and that's fine. Or you, for whatever reason, you may not like your therapist, and so you are allowed to seek help from someone else, or you're allowed to choose another therapist. But that is something that you definitely want to consider. But I would also say at least give them more than one session before you write a therapist off, unless you go to your therapist the first time and it's just absolutely horrible. Gender is also something to consider when you're choosing a therapist. I wasn't really too particular about the therapist's gender, more so how much I felt comfortable in their presence and how they were able to help me and guide me through my issues at the time. But I did feel like I felt more comfortable opening up to a female therapist. Both therapists that I've ever had, they were both women. And so I felt really comfortable with them. But again, just because you're a female does not mean you can't go through to a male therapist. I had a cousin who one of her favorite therapists was actually a male therapist. So you just really never know. Again, I don't think that should be at the top of your list unless it's something that really matters to you. But I would say before you write a therapist off, give them a chance, allow them to help you before you write them off and say it's not a good match. Another thing to also consider is if the therapist you want, if they're actually accepting new clients. Some therapists may not be accepting new clients at the time, or they may have a wait list. Some therapists kind of go through seasons where they don't accept new clients and they'll be opening their books up again. It just really depends. For the most part, the websites I mentioned earlier in the video, they do mention if the therapist is accepting new clients. I believe that the number one thing that you should consider when going to therapy is finding someone that you trust. Because if you don't feel like you trust that therapist, then you're not going to be open to the process, and you're not going to actually want to express your true feelings and emotions. And in my experience, If you go to therapy and you're not honest with the therapist, or if you're not honest with yourself, then you're cutting yourself short. You're really not doing the work. I really do feel like you have to find someone that you're okay with trusting them to know your deepest, darkest thoughts, your deepest, darkest fears. Again, I feel like my therapist is my diary because I'm pretty much comfortable with telling her any and everything. I trust her, and I feel like you should definitely trust your therapist as well. I am such a big advocate for therapy. I feel like everyone should try it. You're probably gonna hear me say this in every video if therapy is brought up, because I really do believe it works. I mean, my life looks completely different than it did when I first started therapy, and I've just learned so much about myself. I've learned how to cope with my emotions. My relationships have gotten much better. I don't have anything negative to say about therapy. But my therapist, she always says that therapy is doing open heart surgery with no anesthesia, and that is really how it feels like sometimes. Sometimes you go to therapy and you'll probably say, I'm never coming back. And then other times you go to therapy and it's like things have been lifted off your shoulders, you feel lighter. So you just never know what you're going to experience, but you do have to trust the process, and you do have to be open to the process as well. Therapy is like ripping the Band-Aid off your wounds. Your wounds are going to be open, they're going to hurt, they're going to be sensitive. I don't want to scare you from going to therapy, but just know that if you go to therapy in your first day and you don't like it, that's completely normal. It's not an easy thing to do, but I promise if you stick with it, if you're open to the process, you'll get so many benefits out of it. Therapy also takes a lot of energy. Some days when I go to therapy, I can't do anything for the rest of the day because I was drained through a session. And then some days I finish therapy, I feel like I could take on the world. I highly suggest when you do first start going to therapy, the days that you do have therapy, I would limit how much you're doing on those days as much as possible. I wouldn't start a brand new project. I wouldn't plan to take on the world after your first couple therapy sessions, because there's just going to be so much different emotions and things that you really have to process. And I feel like the best use of therapy is being able to sit with yourself afterwards and just take a minute to take in what exactly you and your therapist discussed for that full hour. Sometimes it's so much information and you don't really get to process all of it until you leave the therapist. So I definitely suggest you find something relaxing to do. Whatever self-care looks like to you, I would definitely suggest you increasing the self-care on the days that you do therapy, because it can be a lot sometimes. Have you tried therapy before? Let me know. If so, drop down in the comments and let me know what your experience was like. I'd love to hear more about it. If you have any questions about any of the tips that I gave in the video, or any other questions about how to find a therapist, I would love to help. Don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. You can find the email below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Please like and share this video with a friend if you enjoyed it. Until next time, bye.